All right, so get ready, because today we are diving headfirst into a time of prophets and false messiahs, a movement that really shook the Jewish world, like to its very core.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Sabbatean movement back in the 17th century.
Yeah, and it's a wild story full of twists and turns, and you're spot on calling it a movement. This wasn't just some like fringe group, right? This captivated Jewish communities. I mean, from the Ottoman Empire all the way to Western Europe. It really shows you how powerful an idea can be, this idea of a Messiah, someone to usher in a real age of peace and redemption, especially during chaotic times. It takes hold.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole thing. Our listener this week, they've got a stack of excerpts from the Sabbatean prophets, right?
Yeah.
And they want to understand how this movement began, how it unfolded.
Well, you got to start with the time period. So 17th century, right? Talk about a time of massive change, uncertainty, really. Imagine, you've got scientific discoveries, Galileo, right? Challenging like the very fabric of the universe, global exploration, blowing up the known world, and everyone's whispering about the apocalypse like it's right around the corner. It's a recipe for, social and religious anxiety. It's the perfect breeding ground for, let's just say, radical ideas to kind of bloom.
Yeah, it's like the whole world was just holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, and then boom, Sabbatai V walks onto the scene.
Exactly. And man, this is where it gets good. Sabbatai V, he was this like magnetic figure, just this charisma. And he declares himself, get this, to be the Jewish Messiah. But here's the thing. He was not what people expected, like at all. He did some things, let's just say they were unconventional.
The source material, it uses the word strange actions. So what did he actually do?
Oh, man, we're talking straight up breaking Jewish law.
Yeah.
Like big time. Pronouncing the ineffable name of God, eating food that was forbidden, especially in Yom Kippur. Even, get this, like a mock marriage ceremony with a Torah scroll. This wasn't just, being a little different. People saw this as, shocking, blasphemous even.
Wow, okay, that is definitely one way to get noticed, to make a statement. But why would he do that? Was it like a calculated move to provoke people?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Some people saw it as him, like, deliberately challenging the rabbis, the authority, basically saying, hey, I don't play by your rules. But then others, they saw it through a more, like, a Kabbalistic lens, right? That's a mystical tradition within Judaism.
Yeah.
They saw what he did as, like, these deeply symbolic actions, almost like he was trying to shake up the spiritual order, trying to force the Messianic age to start faster.
Okay, so you have this charismatic, totally controversial figure saying he's the Messiah, and this is like tossing a match into a powder keg.
Yeah.
Right? And we know from the research that a new figure emerges, and he basically pours gasoline on that fire. Nathan of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about this guy.
Oh, Nathan of Gaza. He was a scholar, brilliant mind. Steeped in Jewish tradition. And he became totally convinced, like completely believed in Sabbatai's, Messiah status. But he wasn't just a follower. He was like the architect of this movement, the strategist, the brains.
So he was the one who helped spread this message and made it spread far and wide, like the brains behind the operation.
Yeah, exactly. And get this, Nathan, he starts having these incredibly vivid visions. So real. He's convinced that they're divine, confirming everything about Sabbatai being the Messiah. He was really good at like weaving together these intricate theological arguments, traditional Jewish ideas, and even using, ancient texts, pulling it all together to make his case. And this is where it gets really interesting.
This is where it gets really interesting. Man, I love it when you say that.
Oh, yeah, this is good. So Nathan, he was a master of something called pseudepigraphy. And I know it's a mouthful, but it basically means he was writing stuff, but then he was saying, oh, yeah, this old, really important guy from history, yeah, he wrote this. He was creating a backstory, right, to make his claims seem even more legit.
So wait, he was creating ancient prophecies, but prophecies that just happened to back up Sabbatai's V.
Yeah.
That takes guts.
Oh, it totally did. And the thing is, back then, people, they believed in the authority of these ancient texts, like completely. So it worked, right? It was incredibly effective for getting the message out and convincing people that Sabbatai was the real deal.
Okay, so you've got all this, like, intellectual foundation, right, with these theological arguments. But, the source material also talks about these, like, mass prophetic experiences, and it's like this whole other layer to the story.
Oh, yeah, totally. It wasn't just like rabbis and scholars debating in their studies. Imagine like entire communities just swept up in this wave of religious ecstasy. People are speaking in tongues, they're fainting, having visions of the messianic age like right there in front of them. It was like wildfire, just spreading through these communities. And what's fueling it? It's this potent mix of like anxiety, hope, and this yearning for like something bigger than themselves.
Right. And it's like, it's easy for us to look back and think, oh, that's kind of crazy. But we got to remember what it was like back then. That line between like the physical world and the spiritual, it felt a lot more, I don't know, permeable.
For sure. And the source material, it really highlights how important women and children were in these events, these mass prophetic experiences. They were often the ones having these really intense visions. So you see, like, even within these communities, it's challenging those traditional power
Like
structures.
everything's getting flipped upside down.
Hmm.
You've got this controversial guy claiming to be the Messiah, and he's backed up by all these like scholarly arguments, these ancient prophecies, and now you've got like regular people having these really public, ecstatic religious experiences.
Oh yeah, total recipe for disruption. And of course, not everybody was buying it. Our listeners sent in some writing from Rabbi Jacob Sisportas. He was a big deal, prominent rabbi, and he became like a huge critic of the movement.
Ah, so he was the voice of, hold on a second, let's maybe pump the brakes on this whole Messiah thing.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about like protecting his own turf, or the authority of the rabbis. He really believed these like unvetted prophecies, these ecstatic experiences, they were dangerous. It's like they were bypassing centuries of like Jewish law, scholarship,
All
interpretation.
right, it's like today, right, anyone can post anything online, say they're an expert, but does that make it true? I mean, it's different from someone who's like dedicated their life to studying a certain topic.
Such a good point. And
Hmm.
Sosportas, he was especially worried about the theology, some of the stuff Nathan of Gaza was teaching. Worried it strayed too far from traditional Jewish beliefs, thought it could really undermine the whole faith.
So it's not like he was against the idea of a Messiah, just skeptical of this particular Messiah and the methods, right?
Yeah, he saw it like a slippery slope. If anyone can claim prophecy, divine inspiration, what does that even mean? What was the point of like, centuries of Jewish law and scholarship tradition?
It's like he's saying, if everyone's the Messiah, then no one is. So you have this like head-on collision brewing between tradition, individual inspiration, the established order, and this movement that's like, let's burn it all down. We need change NW. And all of this is about to get a whole lot more complicated. Okay, so we're like right at the edge of our seats, right? We've got this powder keg of like messianic anticipation, a controversial Messiah in Sabbatai V, his like mastermind strategist Nathan of Gaza, all these people having these wild prophetic experiences, and then pushback from guys like Rabbi Sosportes. So like, what happens? Where does it all go?
Well, this is where the story, it takes a turn nobody sees coming. So Sabbatai V, he's under all this pressure, right, from
Yeah.
the Ottoman authorities. They are not happy about this whole Messiah business. And get this, Sabbatai V, he converts to Islam.
He converts, wait, the Messiah, he converts to another religion. I mean, that's not usually how this goes, right?
I know. Talk about a plot twist. This sent shockwaves, like, through the entire Jewish world. Imagine you're one of his followers, right? All your hope, all your dreams, it's all riding on this guy. And then he, just walks away from the whole faith. Talk about a crisis of faith, right?
Yeah, it's like the ultimate betrayal.
Yeah.
So what happened to the movement? Did everyone just like throw up their hands and say, well, I guess that's it?
You would think so, right? But that is what's so wild about this whole thing. So yeah, there's scandal, there's this feeling of like, wait, we were duped. But the Sabbatean movement, it doesn't go away. It like splinters, it goes underground, and it keeps evolving.
So how do you explain that? Why would people stick with this, even after their Messiah pulls a 180? Changes his beliefs entirely.
It shows you how strong belief can be, right? Even when it's like staring you in the face, this contradiction. Some people, they just flat out refuse to believe it. They were like, nope, imposter, or it's all part of God's plan. But others, they formed their own groups, started reinterpreting everything Sabbatai did and said to fit, their own ideas.
So even though, like, technically it failed, this whole Messiah thing, it still had this huge impact, this ripple effect that kept influencing Jewish thought.
Oh yeah, 100%. And get this, because this This is wild. So Sabbatai V converting, yeah, it was a huge scandal, but it also made people really interested in Kabbalah again. That mystical tradition, remember? That was like the heart of his whole thing. It's like this weird twist. The thing that should have totally destroyed his credibility actually breathed new life into the ideas that made him so big in the first place.
Okay, so we covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
If we had to, sum it all up, what are the big takeaways? What can we learn from this whole 17th century Messianic movement?
I think first it reminds us that wanting a Messiah, right? This desire for someone to come and just fix everything, it's powerful. And it pops up again and again throughout history, especially during those times of, chaos and uncertainty. People, we crave hope. We want meaning.
We're always searching for something to believe in,
Right.
something to, guide us when things get tough.
Exactly. And second, this whole Sabbatean thing, it shows that struggle, right, between tradition and individual inspiration. Like, who gets to decide what's true, what's right, what's the real deal? It's this battle between authority and the people challenging it, and it's always relevant.
Right, and we see it everywhere, even today, not just in religion.
Oh, for sure. And finally, this movement, it reminds us that belief, I mean, it's powerful, but it's complicated, and man, it can be unpredictable. It can inspire incredible things, but it can also lead to, disillusionment, fanaticism, even violence.
It's a cautionary tale, right, about the power of belief, but it also shows just how alluring it can be, how it shapes the way we see the world, how it drives us. So as you go and explore this incredible period of history, think about this. Why do we keep coming back to this idea of a Messiah? Why is this hope for a new age of peace and redemption? Why does that resonate so deeply across cultures, across time?